This is the grade 11 lesson 1.4 cosine law. So in this lesson we are going to be looking at example number 1. So just as a recap, whenever you see that we are solving a right angle triangle, so we're trying to find side lengths or angles of a right angle triangle, we have two tools that we can use. One tool is, of course, SOHCAHTOA. We can only use SOHCAHTOA for right angle triangles. The other tool we can use is what we learned in grade 10, which was the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared, and that's just helpful for side lengths. So if we see a right angle triangle, here's the tools that we can use. If we have any other triangle, so maybe something that looks like this, we cannot use SOHCAHTOA and we cannot use Pythagorean theorem. So we are left with two other tools that we can use. One of them is sine law, which we looked at in the last lesson, and the second one is cosine law. So cosine law and sine law will also work for right angle triangles, but they can be quite a bit more work than SOHCAHTOA. So if you see a right angle triangle, we just use SOHCAHTOA. Alright, so let's just take a look at the cosine law. So on your handout, we're going to be working on the handout 1.4. Make sure you've got it from me. You can see that the sine law is listed there, which we did in 1.3, and also the cosine law is here. So here is the cosine law. It looks really complicated, but it's actually not. So the cosine law consists of three different equations that you could possibly use. Just like the sine law, we need to be able to label a triangle using A, B, C. So the angles or the corners are capital letters, so I could try to put the A over here, the B over here, and the C over here. Does not matter the order. But what does matter is the side, is which one what we call the side. So across from the big A, we know this is going to be little a. Across from the big B, this has got to be little b. And across from the big C, this has got to be little c. So I think we are ready to do our first example. So example number 1, it says find the measure of the unknown side to the nearest tenth of a centimeter, which is 1 decimal place. So the unknown side is labeled B, so we know that this is the one that we're looking for. So this is let's just list out the options that we have. So we could solve this using SOHCAHTOA. We could solve this using sine law. We could solve this using cosine law. So these are the order in which we learn them in this class. So let's go through this. Can we use SOHCAHTOA? The answer is no, because this is not a right angle triangle, so we can cross out SOHCAHTOA right away. Sine law. Let's try sine law. So I'm going to write out sine law, which is A over sine A equals B over sine B equals C over sine C. So before I can go plug it in, I got to label my triangle. So if this one is little b, this one must be big B. Why don't we make big A up here and big C there? And then I'm going to go across the triangle. This one's got to be A, little a. This one's got to be little c. And let's plug it in. So instead of little a, we can write 20 divided by sine. We do not have angle A, and we can't even find it because we have angle B, but we don't have angle C. So if we had B and C, then we would be able to find A, but because we only have one, we're kind of messed up. We don't have an angle. So I'm just going to put sine A equals little b. We do not have little b, so I'm just going to write little b over sine big B. We've got it. It's 52 equals little c. We've got it, 16, over sine of big C. We do not have that angle, so I'm just going to write big C. So if you remember from the last lesson, we're going to pick two fractions from here. One of the fractions has to be complete, and one of the fractions has to have the thing we're looking for. So here's the thing we're looking for, B. But do we have a fraction that's complete? In this first fraction here, A, we don't have A, so that one's not complete. And then this third fraction here, we don't have C, so that's not complete either. So if we don't have a complete fraction, we cannot use sine law. So I'm going to write a little note. Can't use sine law because we don't have a complete fraction. So therefore, we have to use cosine law. Okay, so let's go back up to here. So we cross out sine law. This is the only one that we've got left. Cosine law has to work. Other than that, we can't solve this triangle. So if you are thinking that doing this is a whole lot of work to check if you can use sine law, I don't disagree with you. So let's come up with a shortcut. If you notice in each fraction, we have to have a side and an angle, and an opposite angle. So what that means is, when we're looking at a triangle, we know we can use sine law if we have an angle and a corresponding side. So we can see we don't have side B, so that's not going to be a complete fraction. Let's check out A. A, we've got a side, but we don't have an angle, so that's not going to be a complete fraction either. And C, we've got a side, but we also do not have an angle, so that's not going to be a complete fraction. So we can just look at the triangle and figure out if we have a matching side and angle. If we don't, automatically cross sine law off your list. So therefore, let's use cosine law. So I'm going to write a little note. Use cosine law. Okay. So what's most important here is that we write a little note that we are looking for B. The reason why that's important is now what I want you to do is I want you to go to the first page and take a look at our equations. So they look like this here. If we're looking for B, which equation should we use? 1, 2, or 3? If you said 2, you're totally right, because if we're looking for B, why don't we pick this one here? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite that equation. So you do not need to memorize it. I will always give it to you on test. B squared equals A squared plus C squared minus 2AC cos of B. So what this means is 2 times A times C times cos B, just a little reminder. So now what we're going to do is we're going to plug everything in. So we're going to use our triangle. I'll just keep on going back up and down. Little b we do not have, so I'm going to write b squared equals little a, we know is 20, and little c is 16. So we have little a is 20 squared, little c is 16 squared, minus 2, a is 20, c is 16, cos of big B is 52 degrees. 50, oh, let's put that different color. 52 degrees. So now what we're going to do is we are literally going to plug this all into the calculator. So I'm going to do little steps. I'll do 20 squared plus 16 squared, I'll do this, and then we'll add up what we can. So I'm going to put in b squared equals 20 squared is just 400. Plus 16 squared is 256, and 2 times 20 times 16, that's just negative 640, and then we're going to put this cos 52. So now we can just put everything into the calculator. So I'm going to type in 400 plus 256 minus 640 times cos of 52. And once you put that into the calculator, it looks like 261 point, and if we're rounding to two decimal places, 0.98. So you cannot say that we are done yet, because if you notice, b isn't by itself. There's a little squared here. So what we would do is take the square and bring it onto the other side. And we know that when we bring something from one side to the other, it becomes the opposite of that thing to undo it. So the opposite of squared is, do you know? It is this little button. It is square root. So when we bring the square onto the other side, to undo it, we're going to make it into a square root. So it's going to look like this. Square root of 261.98. So if you put that into the calculator, the answer is 16.19. is the final answer. This is in centimeters, and we are good to go. So just as a reminder of what we did, taking a look back up here, we've got a triangle. We knew we were looking for side B. So we've got three options. We have SOHCAHTOA, sine law, cosine law. Right off the bat, we can remove SOHCAHTOA from our list because it is not a right angle triangle. For sine law, we tried sine law, but realized we didn't have a complete fraction, and now we know the shortcut. To go from an angle to a side, we need to have a matching angle and a matching side. If we don't have that, we cannot use sine law. So then we were stuck with cosine law. So cosine law, we knew we were looking for B, and so we picked the second equation, wrote that down, plugged in all of our information, threw it into the calculator. Don't forget to take away that squared, and then we were done. Now what I'd like you to do is turn to the very back page, and there is a handout, and what I want you to do is try number 3, and try number 3, A through D. Do not worry about E and F just yet. Answers are at the bottom, so you can check to make sure you've got it.